Hi, this is part 4 of my style list, and it is also the last one. In part 1, we have the elegant, glamorous, and artsy styles. In part 2, we have romantic and feminine styles. And in part 3, we have Y2K styles. Also, here is a playlist that can help you with your style development journey. In there, you will find a how to find your style guide and a few style breakdowns of a few aesthetics. Please do make suggestions if you want me to cover one that you like. If you want to skip some of these steps while developing your style, you can hire me as your styling coach just by going to cocostyling.com. 70s to 80s retro. Bold colors, sportswear, big hair, heavy makeup, and tailored styles. I love this era because it gave us my favorite garment, the miniskirt. They existed before, but they started being extremely popular at this time. The thing is that when they were invented, basically anything that was over the knee was considered a miniskirt. By today's standards, most of those would not be considered miniskirts at all. We also got the popular revival of the traditional preppy style, which is my favorite style. We even got the satire book called The Official Preppy Handbook. I talked about this one in part 1 of this master list. Punk. Punk is an anti-fashion and anti-materialistic movement. So it had a lot of elements that had a worn-out look, which is ironic because punk-themed clothing is really expensive right now. In some cases, we end up paying more for the ripped and worn out version than the non-ripped version. That's because it's more work for the workers, but it is really weird that we are paying for that look and not doing it ourselves. It has an aggressive look, so you will see a lot of leather, spikes, studs, and DIY slogans. We also have the new romantic style, which is a romantic and more feminine version of punk, popularized by Vivienne Westwood and David Bowie. Power dressing. With the more widely accepted concept of women joining the workforce, we got the famous power suit. The invention of the true power suit is attributed to Coco Chanel, but the 80s power suit is the power suit. The power suit has changed a lot over the years. We have the regular power suit that we know, but back then it was all about shoulder pads, athletic fashion, and aerobic wear. With the fitness craze, women's streetwear included clothes that you would wear to an aerobics class. Tracksuits were also very popular, and that is a very good example on how fashion cycles reappear every few years, with tracksuits being popular again in the early 2000s. Sneakers or trainers also became very popular and accepted footwear to wear as common streetwear. This was a very relaxed look, and it wasn't necessarily to work out, but it had a very sporty look. Ballet core and regular sportswear are a modern interpretation of this. Disco. I am inclined to believe that disco fashion was the most fun style from all of these retro styles. It was all about bold colors, shimmer, glitter, and extravagant shapes that will reflect under the disco lights. Disco is fantasy, drama, and boldness. It is having a comeback. Y2K is not over yet, but if you take a look, big platform shoes, flared trousers, and bell-bottoms are something that you can find pretty much anywhere right now. 50s and 60s retro. These are the styles that came after the end of the war. Hippies. This movement is mostly recognized as an anti-war political statement. But not all hippies were into politics. Some of them were only pacifists. Hippie is an acronym for a happy individual person pursuing individual enlightenment. The psychedelic side of hippie fashion and art gave birth to rave and festival fashion. Rockers. As far as I know, rockers were the pioneers of alternative fashion. It is centered on motorcycling and obviously rock music. The original punks, I would call them. Leather jackets, combat boots, raw denim, and of course, wild hair. Mods. You might have heard of the mods versus rockers. This is because they shared a few similarities, but they differed in ideologies. Regarding fashion, mods have a more European dandy look influence. Most would wear tailored pieces mimicking Italian suits. Rock music was also a very part of it, with bands like The Who. Pinups. Josephine Baker, Dorothy Dandridge, and Eartha Kitt were the famous black pinup girls. Pinups were very scandalous at the time because it was all about fantasy and female sensuality. Rockabilly. Like the name, of course, it was inspired by the popularity of rock and roll mixed with country. I would describe its fashion as a more casual, juvenile, colorful, and modest version of pinup. Circle skirts, sleeveless button blouses, and striped hair. New look. Dior revived French fashion after the war with the creation of the Dior's new look. Rounded shoulders, a cinched waist, and a very full skirt. It was a severely polarizing style because it used a lot of fabric, and it was the complete opposite of the scarcity that people had to go through during the war. It was so iconic that right now it is a staple in a classic wardrobe. This is certainly not part of the 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s retro styles, but as a bonus, we have period fashion. Usually, this would be fashion inspired by Victorian fashion. Some people just create their own version of it, and some others try to be as historically accurate as possible. That would be it for today, and this is the end of my Style Master post. Have you experimented with any of this or the past ones that I have talked about? If you felt like I missed something, please let me know in the comments. Have a nice day, and I'll see you next week. In the meantime, for more resources, you can go to micalumsden.com or to cocostyling.com to hire me as your stylist.